Hello and happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of Halo Life with your host, BJ Martin here. Thank you for joining me again for another recap on the Angels week leading up to Friday, February 5th. And man, has a lot transpired since a week ago this Friday. Whew, where do we start? I'm going to cover a lot of bases here today, but I'm going to start with Mickey Callaway. What I mean, if you talk about getting steamrolled, a week ago, story came out in the LA Times about Bauer and him not getting along and that not being a fit for the Angels. That's another story. We'll get into the whole Bauer thing. And then these stories comes out in the Athletic earlier this week. 5 women being harassed by the Angels pitching coach. And boy, did it come down on Mickey really quick, and all indications are deservedly so. The pictures that were shared, the shirtless photo, some of the texts that were shared, that some of the descriptions of the physical acts and behavior that Mickey allegedly demonstrated towards female reporters it's completely unacceptable, and creepy. You know, I feel horrible for the women that are affected by this. Obviously, his wife and 2 daughters. I just, as a father of a young girl, I just can't imagine that. And you know, and he's denied it. So there were a lot of people calling for his head. I get it. You know, no one wants this sort of element around your favorite team. I think he's going to ultimately be fired. What the difference is between the Jared Porter analogy, a couple things. When the Mets GM was wrapped up in an harassment scandal, he came clean. He admitted his wrongdoing, and the Mets were able to terminate him immediately. As most of you are probably aware now, Callaway has denied these allegations, and as a result, California law, if an employee admits or doesn't admit to the crime and says he had no wrongdoing in the process, then labor laws would determine in the state of California that they need to investigate before they can terminate him. So what you're seeing is a process taking place here. He's been suspended, and then upon the outcome of the investigation, I think and suspect he will be fired, terminated, one way or the other. I don't see the Angels ever bringing him back, even if an investigation were to somehow determine that he didn't perform technically sexual harassment or things like those lines. I think what we've seen, there's enough evidence to put the Angels in a position to where it's a bad reflection of the character and what they expect from their employees, and I think that they can rightfully terminate him in that sense too. So, so what are they doing right now? So you've suspended your pitching coach. Right now, internally, who's the option to take his place? And right now on the coaching staff, the only guy I could see really fitting that. I could be wrong completely on this. Maybe Jose Molina, who's a former catcher, could do something like that. There's been guys that have stepped up from that position and become great pitching coaches. But I'd foresee him possibly Matt Wise, who's a bullpen coach, former Angels pitcher, Cal State Fullerton pitcher. Matt Wise could do it in their farm system. They have good pitching coaches. Mike Wirtz was down, I think, at the Inland Empire and the coaching staff there last year. Jairo Cuevas. He's the AAA pitching coach. I could see either one of those, but the one that's intriguing to me, and he was rumored to possibly be named a pitching coach a year ago when Madden took the position, would be Mike Butcher. Butch was pitching coach for the Angels from 2007 to 2015. He was working on staff in another capacity for the Angels prior to Madden accepting the managerial position with Tampa Bay, leaving the Angels organization after 30 years to manage in Tampa. And he brought Butcher with him. And that was Butcher's first pitching coach position. He was there for a year before he left, come back to the Angels, and Jim Hickey became longtime coach for Madden. Hickey's pitching coach in DC for the Nationals, so he's out. But Butcher's not. He's currently not tied to an organization. I think Mike Butcher would be an excellent pitching staff. If you think about that, the staffs between 2007 and 2015, the pitching was great. We had some solid pitching performances on those teams. So I don't think it would be a bad thing to bring Butcher back. Absolutely. I think he was with the Diamondbacks for a few years after his last stint with the Angels. And I personally would love to see Mike Butcher become the Angels' next pitching coach. So I think and I would not be surprised if Joe Madden, the Skip's, been on the phone with Butcher this week to gauge him and his interest. So we'll see what happens, but I would not be surprised if Mike Butcher is playing a role for the 2021 Angels in some coaching capacity. But we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. Here we are. And so the next thing. So there goes Mickey Callaway. We'll have to wait and see what ultimately what happens there. But I don't expect him back. So a week ago, we heard that Bauer had an offer from the New York Mets. As the week progressed, we heard that there were two teams involved. Of course, the LA Times had its report a week ago. Sources that I had from close within the organization said the Angels were still in on Bauer. Marino was not to be counted out. I think that's changed this week, to be perfectly honest. I think Bauer's probably about to go to Mets based on what we've seen on social media. I think he's all but done with the Mets here. He's going to be a New York Met. I think the contract I read really favors him. There was a lot of talk going into this offseason that he'd only won a 1-year deal. The rumored deals that are out there have an option after one season that would fit right into that. I think Butcher might want to do another season, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not the Mets, if someone like the LA Dodgers comes in and pulls the deal off. I think Bauer secretly would probably like to be with the Dodgers if they could come in with an offer. I don't think it was a lack of Artie Moreno trying. I just think there were a lot of different loopholes in this deal that probably made Perry Manassian and Artie kind of balk a little bit to the Bauer deal. Obviously, the luxury tax was a big thing. So what have they done now in response to this? So I think we saw a few things happen. We've seen 3 acquisitions this week for the Angels. The first one on Tuesday was acquiring Alex Cobb from Baltimore. Cobb was a stud when he first came up under Joe Madden's Tampa Bay Rays. Of course, he took that line drive back, very scary play. He ended up having Tommy John back during that play, during that Tampa Bay career. It really kind of set him back quite a ways. And then when he hit free agency, the Angels were pursuing him back then. I remember them being involved in talks, and Baltimore was outbid the Angels, and that was his final ended up being his final destination. He signed that contract there. He made 28 starts that first season, 150 plus innings. His ERA was little 4.9, I think, right under the 5. But next year he had a lumbar strain. I think it forced him to stop his season prematurely. That was 2019, and then last year he pitched solid in 10 games. ERA in the low fours. But the thing that's appealing to me about Cobb, he's not the ace. At least he hasn't performed like an ace in the past few years. That he was an ace back in his days with Tampa, but you're going back, 6-7 years to get to that guy. So he's proven he can win. He's proven he could be a top of the rotation guy. I don't think the Angels are fooling themselves into thinking that he's older. He's not Dylan Bundy. He's not in his 20s. I think they're expecting Cobb to be a guy who can eat up some innings and be that fourth or fifth starter on the Angels. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, "Wow, this sounds very familiar." This sounds a lot like Julio Teheran or Matt Harvey, Trevor Cahill signings that we've seen the last few years. And I'm not going to sit here and say that can't that you can't see that you won't see the same outcome from Alex Cobb. But I do think Alex Cobb does provide some depth, and I think it's a sign that Perry Manassian and the Angels felt like Bauer wasn't going to happen. They needed to add some depth. They're probably still talking to Odorizzi, Paxton, even maybe Taijuan Walker. But I believe that they felt they needed to add some stability to that rotation, someone that they can plug in behind Bundy, Heaney, Ohtani, Canning, and Quintana. Kind of gives them their sixth. Of course, you got Jaime Barria and Sandoval in the mix as well. Right there, you have 8 starters that you can go into camp with. And I don't think that they're done talking to teams about shopping an ace. I think they may go into the season with this rotation, if healthy. I think Bundy, Heaney, Ohtani, Canning, Quintana, and Cobb is a pretty solid starting six. I think that they can contend for that. Now, a lot of folks object against, we don't have an ace that's going to get us to the postseason. Well, guess what? The first week of April, we're not in the postseason. I think that what by not signing Bauer, what the Angels are going to be in a position to do potentially come June, July, August. I can't remember if the trade deadline's the end of July or if it's going to be in August, wherever they moved. I thought they talked about moving it back. Whenever that trade deadline is for postseason play, you've got a ton of guys coming off the books across the board. When I first look at the free agent class for next year, I thought, I started looking at the guys 32 and under, that the Marcus Stromans, the Charlie Mortons, the Noah Syndergaard, Gosman, Lance McCullers Jr. is going to be intriguing. Lance Lynn, John Gray, Kyle Davies, even. I think about those names as potential guys, in addition to Heaney, Bundy, and Quintana, that are going to be out there as well. But then you look at I looked away from the Silverbacks, the gray hairs, the Max Scherzers, the Clayton Kershaws, the Zach Greinke's, even Justin Verlander. I'm not sure what shape he'll be in this summer. He might be out for the season, but those aged guys are going to be out there as well. Originally, it doesn't look really sexy to bring in and sign one of these guys when they're age 37, 38 season. But then I started thinking, what if the Nats are out of this thing again come July and Max Scherzer's out there? Do you think Max Scherzer on the top of this Angels rotation could help you get to the World Series like a Trevor Bauer would have? I think so. I think you can make an argument if they were to be able to get a Max Scherzer. A Zach Greinke. If the Astros are out of it, Zach Greinke could be out there and added again to this rotation. I still don't think that, if the Reds are out of it, that Castillo or Sonny Gray won't be out there as well to be shopped. Or Colorado, we've talked about those guys as well. Gray's going on the free agent market. He's coming off some injury, so he's kind of suspect right now. I think teams are going to want to see him perform for the first couple of months before, they really make a bid for him. So I think that there's plenty of options still available. And I think what Perry's doing here is smart. I think what we're doing is we're building a rotation to start the season and to be competitive and there will be further additions. I have no doubt that if this team is contending, they're going to seek additional top of the rotation additions as the season progresses. So I think that that's where they're headed. Now, could they still sign another starter? Like I mentioned, 6 or 8 with the Sandoval and Berea. I would not be surprised. I still don't think like a Tajon Walker's out. I mentioned Odorizzi and Paxton. They still could be talking there. Again, they sign one. It depends on what the price is. You know, if they throw, you know, they probably got another 10 million to 15 million maybe that they can spare right now. So I think it all depends on that. So, but based on what I just told you, I think they also might just go into camp with this club, see how it pans out, and if arm trouble starts coming up or injuries start to appear in some of these guys or performance is lacking, I think that they're gonna take a deeper look. So I think pitching, that's where we're at. I think relief pitching now, if Bauer's out of the equation, there's also a lot of options out there. Trevor Rosenthal is one that comes to mind. We have Raisel Iglesias. That was a great acquisition early for the Angels. He is right now slated to be the closer. Mike Myers. Both those guys are rated right now on Fangraphs like top 20 relief pitchers in the league. I think that they've added support with Claudio, Alex Claudio, as well as Junior Guerrera. Last week they signed. So I think they've added some pieces to Felix Pena and Ty Buttrey and the others that are coming back. But they could add another piece like a Trevor Rosenthal. I think a Tony Watson's been intriguing as another lefty to throw in there with Claudio. He was someone that I think they were interested and fascinated with, him and Will Smith, when they were at the Giants a few years ago. He's available as a free agent. I think Watson would be great to plug in there. I think Madden had Jeremy Jeffries in Chicago. I think he's an intriguing little righty. He could throw in the middle of the. He's closed some at the end of the year for the Cubs, but I think he's a 7th, 8th inning pitcher. That sort of signing, I think, can happen. So I think pitching, they can still make some improvements. But for starters, I think this might be it, guys. I know as much as that probably hurts, this might be it for that starting rotation going in the season. I think we're just going to have to see how it plays out. Another intriguing move that the Angels made was Dexter Fowler. This happened Thursday night. The Angels acquired the veteran Fowler, switch hitter, former Madden player with the Cubs. He hit 3 home runs in that World Series against Cleveland, including a leadoff home run in the Game 7, decisive Game 7. He played center field that entire game, was 3 for 5 in that game. Obviously, I think most people think of the contract in the last 3 years he spent or 4 years, I should say, in St. Louis, and they just didn't pan out. His first year in St. Louis wasn't bad. In 2017, I think he had an injury in that second year, kind of hurt him, and he has not been the same hitter the last 2 seasons leading into this. But he's 35 years old. He's a veteran presence. He's a guy you can put out into to right, left, or probably even center, although he would be a downgrade, obviously. But you can plug him in the fill him in. You can fill him in at DH. He's a guy who can do that. He's capable of being a starting right fielder. But if someone else steps up, I think like Joe Adell or Brandon Marsh, although I think both those guys are probably going to start the year at Salt Lake playing in that outfield, getting some time there and some reps before they get back up. But if even a Taylor Ward, or even for that matter, Jared Walsh, someone they want to take a look at out there, or there might be another player that we see that's added to a minor league contract and invite. Whatever the case is, you can also make Fowler a 4th outfielder. That's the beauty of it. And the best part of this deal, from what we can see now going into Friday, is that the Cardinals are paying $12.75 million of his the remaining salary. So the Angels are getting him for a bargain, $1.75 million. So he can be a 4th outfielder at that price. You don't have that burden. I think a change of scenery is going to be really good for Fowler. I think there had to be pressure on him in St. Louis on that large deal. I looked it up. I think he's just shy of earning $100 million during his career, which like 83 million of that came from that last deal with the Cardinals. This is the guy who's been in the big leagues for like 13 or 14 seasons, and 83 million of like the 97 million that he's earned has come off this Cardinals contract. There was a lot of pressure on him there. It obviously didn't work out the way the Cardinals had hoped, the way Fowler had hoped. But now he's coming into a new environment. I think he's now in a place where he can thrive. He can be a leader. He can be a clubhouse guy. He can be somebody that the young Angels talent can learn from. He'll be, I think, a good positive influence on the Joe Adells, on the Brandon Marsh, on the other guys that are in the clubhouse, and he could potentially be a good split platoon player with Taylor Ward out in right field. Taylor had a little bit of a rough season last year against left-handed pitching, but for his career, he's 40 points higher as a batter against facing left-handed hitters at the big league level than he is right-handers, where, on the other hand, Fowler, the last couple seasons, has struggled against lefties. Ironically, for his career, he's a better hitter from the right side of the plate facing left-handers, but the last couple years in St. Louis, he's really struggled hitting against left-handed pitchers, which would mean batting from the right-hand side of the plate. So it would be interesting to see how he's played this spring. It wouldn't be the first time ever if someone converts from a switch hitter full-time left-handed hitter, if that's identified, and I'm sure that's something that the Angels coaches and Joe Maddon will be looking at closely this spring. Maybe making him a full-time left-handed hitter would not be a bad thing, and then you use him kind of in a platoon situation with a Ward, and then potentially down the road with Adell, when he's ready to finally get that call again. And at worst case scenario, is a great stopgap. I think he'll fit in really well as a stopgap for the Angels to bridge to Adell and to Marsh that are right around the corner. They just need some other time to progress and get more experience at the AAA level. You got to remember, Joe Adell got a really hard reaction from the fan base last year, and I get it. I mean, obviously, no one's going to forget those bloopers out in the outfield, and obviously he struggled at the plate. I can't imagine, how he wouldn't have struggles there. And I look around the league, and even look at the guys who were competing for Rookie of the Years. You had like the Cronenworth. You had a lot of guys that had never had big league experience. Had some struggles last year as hitters, just not getting the reps at the AAA level, whether you're in the Pacific Coast League or the International League, without having those leagues operating and playing schedules, and where these guys are getting out and grinding out 25 to 30 at bats a week against the opposing pitching. It's tough. It's tough to just jump right up to the big league level, from the training facility, off campus training facility. It was a struggle for Adell, and I'm sure March would have struggled. I'm glad they held off on calling him up. I think both will benefit from some additional time, but I am really, really anxious to see both these guys in Tempe and just to see how they are performing. Another pickup that was really interesting was a claim. It was a claim they made from the New York Mets, and it was a second base / corner outfielder named Robeil Garcia. Most people probably don't recognize the name Robeil Garcia, and there's a reason why, because he has only had a brief stint in the major leagues, starting with Joe Maddon's 2019 Cubs. It's a really interesting story. He was a prospect in the Cleveland Indians organization, didn't develop to the point where he kept progressing. He was let go, and he sought to have a professional career in Italy, Italy has a professional baseball league. He played a couple seasons in Italy before coming to signing a minor league contract with the Cubs before the 2019 season, and he worked his way into the lineup and made that club for Joe Madden was impressed enough with him where he cracked that opening day roster. And in fact, I had the privilege of travel. I love going to games at Wrigley Field. My brother lives in Chicago. He's a Cubs fan. So anytime the Angels have played at Wrigley Field, I've been there. I'll make a trip out there to see the Angels play Wrigley, because it's just a beautiful, beautiful ballpark. If you haven't been to Wrigley Field, Angels fans, you got to get out there. There's nothing like it in the world. But at any rate, I digressed. My brother, all his buddies, they were talking about Robeil Garcia. He was kind of like the cult figure from the for the Cubs. This guy who's come out of nowhere, literally come out of left field to make this club after playing 2 years in Italy. So that April, when the Angels played Friday, and then the last 2 games were snowed out, if you remember, that Friday game, that was kind of the buzz, was Robeil Garcia. I think he appeared in that game as well against the Angels. But Madden obviously is not forgotten this guy, and he's hit about 220 hitter. You can kind of see at the major league level. I think his projections are to be around a 232 hitter if he's at the big leagues this year. But Madden likes his makeup, and he's playing right now. If you have ESPN Deportes, if you can gain access to that, you can see him playing right now for the Dominican Republic team down there. I think he batted, low 200s again in the actual Winter League season, but I believe he's batting about 300 in a series. Had a big key hit the fourth game for Dominican, and he was 1 for 4 with a double in the fifth game. Dominican Republic seems to be running away with that. They're 5-0 in the Series del Caribe. So Garcia is an interesting guy. I think, obviously that's David Fletcher's job at second base. I don't think there's going to be a lot of competition. Fletcher, Iglesias, Rendon, those infield spots, the battle's going to be Walsh, proving that he's got what we saw last year with dethroning Pujols in his final year, and you can never forget about Matt Thaiss. But I think Garcia is an intriguing guy, along with Colton Wong's brother, who they signed to a minor league deal. I think we're going to see those guys getting some reps at second base this offseason, and the fact that Garcia plays the corner outfield, he could be one of those guys that latches on as a last man on the roster, that can kind of have that versatility of playing around. So an interesting guy to look at. And at this point, we don't know who's going to be added, but I expect to see some more players. Here we are, less than 2 weeks from now, this Friday, you're going to start seeing a lot of the position players joining the pitchers and catchers, who will be reporting in less than 2 weeks. And I think there's going to be some guys that we don't know now that aren't Angels today. And I think we're going to see some more additions. I think the Fowler deal will put the Angels roster at 40, their active roster, so they don't have any open spots on their 40-man roster right now. But like the Junior Guerrero trade, I think you're going to start seeing, and it wouldn't surprise me to see some other acquisitions, guys that are signed to minor league contracts with a non-roster invite, which all that really means is they're saving a spot on their 40-man. They don't have to reassign anybody, and things kind of play themselves out. We see it every year. We hate to think about injuries. We hate to think about those things that this happen. And there's likely to be guys that, maybe have to start the year on the disabled list, and that'll open up a spot where one of these non-roster invites, minor league signings can then take that spot on the 40-man roster as it gets closer to opening day. So I think, there's plenty of guys out there. I mentioned a couple earlier, Trevor Rosenthal, Jeremy Jeffries. I think if those guys are signed, they're going to be the big league deals, and then you'll see somebody else designated for assignment. It may be someone like Garcia, who we just picked up. Who knows? I don't like to speculate on that, but I would not be surprised to see the Angels make some additional signings now, especially as it's getting to look appear like we're out on Bauer. That Bauer's decided to move on. He's going to be somewhere else besides Anaheim. But he may have an opt out next year. So if we want to do Bauer to Anaheim, if we love doing a hashtag, I think there'll be an opportunity potentially for us to do that next year. We'll have to wait and see. I have a feeling most of you probably feel betrayed right now by the Bauer sweepstakes and Bauer to Anaheim if it's not actually going to pan out, which it doesn't appear it will. But there's a process. I like what the moves that Perry's made. I think there's a lot. I hear a lot of folks out there. Oh, we didn't do enough. We didn't do enough. I get it. The sexy pick didn't happen, but I think that the acquisitions that the Angels did make have improved this team. I think the bullpen over 162 game season. I looked at the last year's WAR numbers in a short 60 game season. The Angels improved at least one game. I think if you break that out across a season, that's 2.5 games improvement. That's not taking into account some guys who didn't even appear last year at the big league level that have an opportunity to make this team. So bullpen's improved. I think the starting rotation is improved. Quintana and Cobb will improve that staff as long as they don't go the route of Julio Teheran or Matt Harvey. At some point, the Angels' luck has to change on these acquisitions. They can't continue down this road. I think that there's going to be some positive results that we're going to see. And if they don't, I still like Jaime Barria. He pitched really well 5 games in the Dominican Winter League this last year. I was hoping to see him in the Caribbean Series. He caught COVID about a week ago, so he couldn't travel with Team Panama to appear in the Caribbean Series in Mazatlan, which was disappointing because I'm a baseball junkie, so I love watching those games in Spanish. But so I missed getting to see him there. I did have the package, the Dominican package. I watched a lot of every one of his starts, all 5 of those starts that were broadcast on the Dominican TV this winter. And I like Barria stuff. I think Barria, if he could pitch out of the bullpen. He could be someone that we look at that's a swing man for the team. And Sandoval, and the same thing. Sandoval's still young, 24, 25 years old, I think. And he could be someone that could help this club. And we got to think ahead too. Like, these guys are going to continue to develop. Neither of them are 25 years old. They're all under 25. And you throw Jose Suarez, who's had a kind of thrown up at 22 years old at the big league level. He never had a chance. He hasn't had a chance to develop. These guys either going to be in the bullpen, probably not in the rotation if all 6 of those guys that they have now are healthy and ready to go. But they could also spend some time at AAA and get some more experience at Salt Lake. And next year, Canning and Ohtani, those are the only 2 of those 6 that are signed beyond this year. So the Angels are going to be out there looking. They're going to clear. I think I mentioned in the last podcast, I think they're going to clear about $80 million this offseason between Albert Pujols, Heaney, Bundy, the others that they have that are coming out the books this year. And then Upton's got 1 more year on his deal. But you include Upton in it, you're up close to 95 million. I think that they're going to be clearing. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for the Angels to improve their team beyond this year. But my point was with Canning and Ohtani, they only have the 6 now. We're going to see more value potentially for Barria, for Sandoval. Last year's number 1 pick, Reed Detmers, has yet to pitch in a minor league baseball game, but I would not be surprised if he's accelerated. He starts at AA this year. We'll have to wait and see. Chris Rodriguez, another pitcher that's going to be accelerated. He's coming off injury, but I think he'll be at AA. I would expect this year as well. And then I like other guys. Hector Yan pitched out of the bullpen in the Dominican League. He looked good. I like him. Lanky lefty. Aaron Hernandez is another guy. They've got a slew of guys that they've picked in the last couple of years that are developing. We haven't seen yet, just because of what happened with the season suspended in 2020. We're all going to be looking at these guys to help this team potentially in 2022 and beyond. But there's a great opportunity for the young players. But right now, I think every Angel fan wants to see Mike Trout, Rendon, Ohtani, and the rest of the Angels in the Big A in October playing. And guys, I'm not just saying this. I think this team can do it. I think that Upton's back. I know a lot of folks have been anxious to see Upton go. He's had a tough last couple of years due to injury and other things. I think we saw a shade of what we can expect from Upton the last half of that 60 game season last season. I think he's going to be ready to go this year. I think don't be surprised to see 30 home runs, 100 RBI, Justin Upton toward the middle of that order, protecting Trout and Rendon. I think he can do that. I think Ohtani was totally thrown off by trying to come back as a pitcher last year, the shortened season, everything with the COVID. I think we're going to see Ohtani back. I think he's going to be a big factor for this team. And just those two, Upton, Ohtani, being what we know they can do. And then, this team's that is, I think, a playoff contender. And then you got to take the other teams in this division into account. The Astros haven't improved themselves this offseason. They're going to be without Verlander, their ace. I think that they're going to be down a notch. Oakland Athletics, Marcus Simeon's left. Mike Fears is still a free agent. He could resign. But as of this date, this Friday, February 5th, they have not improved their team to take into account the losses that they've seen. So we don't know. So I think that the Angels have improved. I think Houston and Oakland have not improved. They've worsened the strength of their roster. I think that's going to benefit this team. We'll have to see how the Rangers and Seattle are in the mix. But when I'm looking at the competition for the Angels team, I'm looking at the Astros and the Athletics, and I see that the Angels are ripe to just take advantage of some depleted rosters, some injuries, and development. This team's continuing to develop. We love David Fletcher, a great guy at the top of the order. He's going to kickstart this offense, and you've got, in whatever order after that, Trout, Ohtani, Rendon, Upton, Jared Walsh, Jose Iglesias. Am I getting you excited yet? Max Stassi. Dude would have hit over 20 home runs if it was a 162 game season last year. Kurt Suzuki being brought in to be his backup. And guess what? There's still rumors going around that Wilson Contreras could be a potential target for the Angels too. I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to swing a deal to get him. We'll have to wait and see. Now that Bauer's off the board, anything can happen. But at any rate, that's a review for this week. Maybe next week we'll have a little more closure on the Mickey Callaway situation. Maybe we'll know who the Angels pitching coach will be going into camp. We may have new Angels to talk about. If not, we're going to talk about how the Angels look going into camp with the pitchers and catchers. But until then, remember to live your life 9 innings at a time. Don't take any day for granted, and enjoy your weekend.